presentation. That's what I say again about the tone of my presentation, because again I genuinely want us to use this particular landscape review to put trading standards into a better place. At the same time, we'd be foolish not to ensure that there are the foundations and substance to help us deal with that. Let me just pick up some of those particular points as I go through the rest of my presentation, and not to too much anticipate, because I'm sure that Heather will talk about the OFT, and Philip, I know you won't want to talk too much about consumer focus, but nonetheless I'll do it for you if I can during the course of this. This afternoon I have a meeting with Citizens Advice. It will be another crucial meeting. Those of you in this room involved in trading standards will know that the partnership, the alliance between trading standards and Citizens Advice goes back a long, long way. I myself, when I worked in a local authority, my last local authority, I was on the management committee of 5 CAB. That's indicative, and that happens around the country now, so that partnership has always been close and reasonably effective. But it's been based on the issue of a joint concern for consumer well-being and citizen well-being. The new world that's emerging from the BIS consultations, the new world is one that obviously takes citizen advice into a completely new arena, but it also takes, because of the Vince Cable statement, the relationship between trading standards and citizen advice into a new arena. We are being extremely positive about that at TSI. We are working closely with Citizens Advice at national level. We are working closely with Citizens Advice Scotland, in Scotland, and a big part of that, of course, is this second bullet point, the loss of Consumer Direct. I can't begin to tell you how important Consumer Direct is to a modern trading standards service. Mitchell, we've benefited since 1997 from a Labour government that invested a considerable amount of support into trading standards, and that started with Kim Howells and the Modernisation Fund, £30 million from the centre, that allowed us to do things that we would never have done if we hadn't had that central funding. Local government would never have found that money to take us on to a different national level and regional level. That money was provided by the centre. It enabled us to take forward scam buster teams, illegal money lending teams, regional groups in a way that we had never done before. It allowed us to at one time move towards greater qualification success by way of DTS training scholarships for our professionals. We did so much with that money, and have done since 1997. Now I'm glad to see that John and his colleagues have fought hard to keep that money, and I'll just come on in a moment as to how that money might be managed. I'm also glad that John and his colleagues and ministers understand the importance of Consumer Direct to trading standards in this modern era. We could never go back to where we were before Consumer Direct. Let me put that in two ways. One, there is hardly a local authority that I know of that would be in a position to reinstate first-tier consumer advice. It could never do it. The new world will be about local authorities delivering consumer advice through Citizens Advice Bureau. That's what they would do. Most of them fund them anyway. There is no way that funding will be redirected in the current climate or the foreseeable climate back into a trading standard service to deliver first-tier consumer advice. Secondly, trading standards did exactly what the government wanted it to do, to shift resource from first-tier consumer advice into intelligence-led enforcement. That's been hugely effective over these last 5 to 6 years. The service is now almost wholly reliant upon that intelligence from various sources, not least from Consumer Direct. Thirdly, business has itself benefited from Consumer Direct, because through its home and primary authorities, business gains access to the data, because business wants to improve its performance vis-à-vis its consumer-facing activities, and that's been incredibly important. Our task with Citizens Advice is to ensure that in the transition to Citizens Advice running a rebranded Consumer Direct service within, no doubt, its totality of Citizens Advice, that those key elements are not lost. and that in itself heralds the importance of a new partnership. I'd also say that what the BIS document has done has, I think, further driven or encouraged a devolved attitude to consumer affairs. I'm not going to comment on whether that's a good or a bad thing, but that is, I think, what's happening as those in Scotland and Wales, as Philip will know, for example, say, well, you might be abolishing consumer focus, but I'm blowed if you're abolishing consumer focus Scotland or consumer focus Wales. And that, I think, is driving those to look at the Northern Ireland model and others just to see what new regimes might be put in place in lieu of what's happening from the centre. And nothing wrong in that, that's what devolvement is all about. There's a lot of issues about funding and powers and otherwise, but I think that is what happened. My big fear in that, though, is I would say to anyone that would listen, we have so little money to disaggregate. Please, 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 we cannot afford disaggregation of those little monies that currently remain at the centre, including Consumer Direct, to move into a devolved approach, and we shall see how that materialises. And I'm sure, I suspect BIS would say the same thing. Picking up your other point, Austin, if I can, the risk of devolving more at this particular time of cuts. Well, huge risks, obviously. I've mentioned many of the problems that we're now facing, but one of the big issues that's emerged, and this will mean something to many of you and not all of you, is the local government machinery of government itself. So just at the time when I think we need that local government coordinated machinery at the centre, it is about to disappear. And we will await the formal announcements, but at the moment the local government group, a loss of nearly 40% of funding from subsidised funding. The casualties are significant across the local government machinery of government. It's a world that I know very well. I'm incredibly saddened by what's happening, but we have to face the facts. And the facts are that the support machinery that's been in place since 1978 is about to be lost. And that loss will be hugely significant. It's a challenge for BIS and others because, as I say, John and his colleagues deserve every applause for keeping that pot of money together at the centre that supports illegal money lending units, scam bust and otherwise, and recent announcements have been well received on that basis. At the same time, the devolvement of the management of that funding to local government is going to present an additional challenge to us all in the world of a non-local government regulation existence in that environment. And that's something that the Institute is working very hard with the LGR, with many of our other colleagues, to see how we might assist in that process, if at all. But if we are to assist, then it has to be done on a way that makes it sustainable. There is no local government money to help in that regard, so how else can we provide a mechanism, invent a mechanism that might just start taking the new world forward?